Hey, what's up, Isolation Nation? Once again, welcome back to the Daily Jase live show. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well under the current conditions. I know, crazy time. There's been a lot of things going on in the background. Government has made announcements around what's happening with moving into level 3 and beyond. So I'm sure that puts everyone's minds at rest a little bit, and people are starting to plan what the new normal looks like on the other side of all this. I'm jumping on today, and for those who know me, they know that I've been involved in an organization called Global Games for the past 4 years or so, and it's been one hell of a ride. And I thought, why not jump on with Mr. Global Games himself, Tyrone Campbell. So welcome to the stage. How are you, mate?
Yeah, no, good, bro. And yeah, real pleasure to be here. It's my first live interview, so I'm excited, and yeah, really cool what you're doing. So yeah, thanks for having me.
No, thanks for jumping on. It's been one hell of a adventure with you across Global Games over the last few years. For everyone who doesn't know you out there, can you just give a quick five of what you're all about, and your history, background, and where you've been and what you've done, and give a little bit of context around who you are?
Okay, I'll try and wrap that up in five minutes. I'm from born and bred in Lower Hutt, but spent quite a bit of time in Waipawa and Waipukurau. So kind of blessed with a bigger suburban upbringing plus country lifestyle. I did my schooling in and around the Hutt Valley High School. When I finished school, I did a trade and then got itchy feet to see New Zealand. So I hitched all around New Zealand, saw heaps of our beautiful country, and from there met lots of people from around the world. So decided that I wanted to travel the world. So I spent about 7 years doing that, traveling all over the place, meeting heaps of cool people and taking in lots of amazing experiences. While I was in Scotland, one of the last places on my OE, I was really, I guess, having those thoughts around what I wanted to do when I came back to New Zealand, and I dreamed up Global Games, and wanted to, I guess, connect New Zealanders and also people from around the world. So I came back in 2010, put together our first event in Taupo. A few clubs came around from around the country and had a great time, and it just kind of took off from there to what it is today. And Tyrone today, Ty, I've got 3 beautiful children, a beautiful partner, Carla, and I also have an organic pie business here in Albany on the North Shore in Auckland. Yeah.
Nate, have you got any post-isolation bucket list things to do once we've been all tied up with what's going on?
Yeah, no, I do. It's been a real, I guess, reflection time for myself and obviously a lot of others around the country and around the world. A time to a forced break as such, and time to reflect and I guess make some new priorities and some new goals and, as you say, bucket lists. Yeah, I want to just solidify our pie business. That's a really big thing that we want to do. We've been in the pie game for the last six years now, and we've tried a number of avenues: wholesale, events, and retail. And I guess we've kind of found our niche, which is the retail side of the business. So we want to solidify that and I guess fix all the kind of back end things and streamline some of our operation, and also bring in some technologies that make our job and our team's job easier. So that's one thing we want to do, and also I guess the same with Global Games. just really solidify what we're doing there, and again just streamline it and I guess use global games as a tool for giving back to communities, and Pioneer Pies, our pie business, as a business moneymaker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What, for those people who haven't heard of global games before, what's that venture been like? So it started roughly 10 years ago, 11 years ago. What were the big milestones that were hit over that journey, and what does it look like today compared to 11 years ago?
Well, as I was saying, I kind of dreamed it up in Scotland. It was actually on a camping trip with one of my best mates. We were around the campfire, and I guess I had an epiphany about it at the time, and I kind of mapped it out from there. What I needed to do. The first thing I did was contact the New Zealand Rugby Union and say, hey, look, this is an idea we've got, and do you have any objection to us running a junior festival? They didn't. Then we contacted the King Country Rugby Union because we wanted to hold our first event in Taupo, and they said they were good with it. And then we contacted a number of clubs from some of the oldest clubs in the country, some of the most famous, some of the most successful, along with just a few kind of cool rural clubs that I knew about. And then when I got back to New Zealand, I drove all around the country and visited those clubs and got in front of people, because whenever you've got a great idea and I guess a vision or a dream, sometimes it's really hard to sell that. And I've found personally that the best way to sell your vision or dream is to get in front of people, so they can see how passionate you are about it. So on that trip around New Zealand, I visited a number of clubs and got in front of a lot of people, a lot of parents that were invited and said, "Hey, look, do you want to bring your kids up to Taupo?" And it was a big step for them, because sending your kids from Murchison or Christchurch, Otago, Invercargill, Northland, down to an event run by an organisation that you'd never heard of was quite a big deal. So it was important for us to get in front of them, one, to sell that vision and dream, and also to, I guess, build that trust. And after that first event, we really kind of forged some great relationships, and everyone kind of got on board with it, and now it's the biggest junior rugby festival in the world. So yeah, I guess that in a summary is where it's kind of at and been.
Yeah, Nate. How's Global Games dealing with the whole situation? Of course, we had international teams coming for the last few years from Japan, from Australia, America. Obviously, they've been heavily impacted, but also the teams around the country. What's Global Games doing amongst this whole situation to adapt?
As an organisation, it's been pretty heart-wrenching, to be honest, because today we were supposed to be sending a team from South Auckland, Papatoe Ravens under 13s to France for the trip of a lifetime, and unfortunately, due to coronavirus, that had to be cancelled. There was also another club, Auckland University, who was sending two teams as well. So that's majorly affected them. We've welcomed a number of teams from overseas here to Aotearoa, and I guess given a lot of international players, junior players, the trip of a lifetime here over that period, over that 10 years, and over that time we'd been invited a lot to take up the offer to go and visit some of those regions and some of those countries that had visited here, and this was that opportunity. So really gutting, because for us ourselves, the organisation, a lot of work and resource had been put into it, but more importantly for those players, that we're looking forward to being a part of something really special, and going over to France and also Wales and England to play in global games affiliated events and visit regions and provinces that we'd looked after here. So there's that which majorly affected us. Also, we had about 13 international teams due to come over this year from as far away as Ukraine, the States, Japan, South Africa, and Australia, and they'll no longer be able to travel due to the coronavirus. And right now, as of today, we're not sure what the landscape will look like come September when we run our festivals. They're predominantly 90% domestic New Zealand teams, but we're not sure, what shape or form the event will be able to take. So, it's majorly affected our organisation and in a big way, and also a lot of clubs and individuals, not just here in New Zealand, not just Papatoe and Varsity, but these clubs and these young people who are really looking forward to being a part of the global games this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's a lot of disappointment, I suppose, with all those teams that wanted to come along, but from overseas. But hopefully, we'll be able to run an event in the biggest capacity possible come September. We'll just have to see what the policy looks like in the next few months.
Yeah, that's it. And look, I'm really positive that we will be able to run an event, and after all of this, I think that bringing people back together through sport, through events, is going to be a big part of the healing process, connecting people once again.
Yeah, what do you think this means for the landscape of sport in general for the next 6 months to a year?
I mean, it's definitely going to change things. I mean, we're already seeing that. I guess being in the midst of it, right, as we speak, it's really hard to say what the end position will be. But I think without a doubt, it's going to change the landscape of sport as we know it. I mean, you already look at a lot of leagues around the world. Every one of them has been affected. Some of the ones who aren't as financially strong, I think, are going to really struggle. So they need to look at how they operate, and then closer to home, how does the landscape of sport look? Being down here in the South Pacific, to play a lot of our competitions, whether that's the A-League or Super Rugby, it involves travel. So that's going to be affected as well. So I mean, I don't know. It's too hard to put a finger on what this is coronavirus is going to do to sport, but I think we can all agree it's going to have an impact.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I suppose sport is, especially in New Zealand, it's in our blood. It's something we all crave, whether it's participation or whether it's being competitive or even just watching sport on TV. Everyone loves the atmosphere that surrounds it, the culture. It binds people together, and whether you're in a team or not, it's a lot. New Zealanders have something in common where that we just love sport, no matter what sport it is, right? So it's going to impact how the country, or the feeling around the country. If there's no All Blacks games, what's the next interest that the country is going to follow?
Yeah, well, that's right, and you're 100% right, Jase. Sport plays a major part in New Zealand and a lot of countries. But if we're looking at New Zealand, it's part of our DNA, and it's a plays a massive part in connecting people and communities. There's probably a big opportunity through all of this. Like you mentioned, the All Blacks there, and part of the loss of connection was through club rugby and also the provinces where the All Blacks haven't played for their clubs or provinces for many a year. So for grassroots sport, this whole coronavirus might actually have a positive impact once we come through it, because it's going to bring things back more localized and more domestic. And I know a lot of rugby clubs and a lot of provinces would love to have those Super 15 and All Black players playing for them. And it kind of, there's more connection there for young people if they see those top end players running out for their clubs or their provinces.
Yeah, right. We've just had a comment on the page. Stu, yep. Tyrone Campbell, good to see you. And
good to see you, Stu.
Stu's one of our refs that comes to our events. He's a top bloke and a bit of a laugh at the best of times. So, Stu, hope you're doing well through all this. Good to see you're tuning in.
You're right there, Jess. I mean, and it's blokes like Stu and a number of others around the country that make global games what it is. It's really, really awesome to see him supporting you and what you're doing, and also being a part of the global games family. And yeah, he's a great bloke.
Yeah, we have so many cool volunteers that jump on board with the initiative. It's like, I suppose COVID-19 in a sense is has similarities in that sense, because people are getting behind good initiatives. They're getting behind, I guess, there's a lot of things that draws communities together. One is like good initiatives, but also times of crisis. And I think that has become especially relevant in today's current climate. I've seen people, especially since I'm involved in the student side of things, there's a student volunteer army that I'm seeing. The social impact studio is getting really involved in the community down here. Have you seen much going on in Auckland? Just as a side point, is there things that you've noticed around the place?
Yeah, as you say, like sometimes it takes a crisis to kind of bring people together, unfortunately. But yeah, I've seen a lot more community engagement, whether that's clubs or churches, kind of really mobilising to help people in need. Also, it's been really heartening to see essential workers get the praise that they deserve. A lot of those people are on the front line, and I'm not just talking about the medical people. I'm talking about the supermarket workers and stuff. And it's really good to see them getting a lot of praise through all of this, because traditionally they haven't got the recognition probably they deserve. So for me personally, it's been good to see those frontline workers, nurses and medical staff and supermarket workers and people that collect our rubbish and that do a really important job for society getting that recognition. So that's been really, really heartening for myself.
Yeah, these people, they go out their way. Normally it's just a job, but they've really stepped up to the plate, especially making sure that there's set boundaries to keep everyone else safe when they do visit the supermarkets, when they do come into hospitals, when they do clear the rubbish, making sure that obviously they're going outside of their bubble in order to make sure society can keep functioning. We can all have food on our plates. We can all function as individuals or within our bubbles. It's a good point you raised there, because they don't get the recognition they deserve normally.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely right.
For a lot of the other essential workers, like more rurally, our farmers and farming community, speaking to people on farms, it's not a hell of a lot of difference for them. They're just going about their daily lives as they always were, putting food on our tables.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the future of rugby looks like? Because I suppose like every industry has been shaken from the top downwards. Give it 3 years' time, say, what do you think the rugby climate looks like?
Well, that's a really good question. Hopefully fairer.
In what way?
Hopefully that we move to a position of, at the moment, you have the big players, particularly the Six Nations that control the game. They try to bring out a world league and bring the minor nations on board, and yeah, it would have been great. It would have been more investment for the game. It would have given some of the minor nations an opportunity, but the Six Nations unions vetoed it because they didn't want to be relegated. So basically they were protecting themselves, which is certainly a human trait. But professionalism has done a lot of good things for the game, but it also has done a lot of harm as well. I mean, look at what's happening in Australian rugby at the moment. It's in disarray. And for New Zealand, we need Australian rugby to be strong. A lot of New Zealanders don't actually realise that, but we need Australian rugby to be really strong.
Why do we need them to be strong?
Because they're our main. Because they're our main competition. So, obviously there's South Africa there, but through all of this, we may not be playing South Africa as regularly. So, we play Australia more than any other nation on the planet. They're our closest nation, closest in culture to us. And if we're playing them more than any other country, then we want our competition to be strong and testing us and pushing us, because if you're not being pushed and tested by someone that you're playing regularly, then it's going to affect how you play. So I think that's really important. I think a lot of the Pacific nation islands get a bit of a hard time, particularly they don't get much of a voice, and also if some of the players play for another nation, they might only play 1 or 2 games for the All Blacks or the Wallabies or another first-tier nation, but then they're not allowed to play for their home nation after that. And also some of the big clubs in France and England that have Pacific Island players, that they don't release them to play for their nation year in, year out, and they don't even release them for the World Cup. So I think that's a blight on the game. And also there seems to be a lot of resource. We're very top heavy. A lot of resource and energy goes towards the All Blacks, which is great, and also the Super 15 franchises. But you kind of start dropping down the tiers, and there's not a lot of resource or energy going to the smaller provinces, or particularly to club rugby, grassroots. So for anything to be strong, your grassroots foundation needs to be strong. So through all of this, I hope that there's a kind of realignment, and rugby comes back to its roots. It's a game built on values, and it's important that we walk the talk.
Do you think it's almost like a reset? Like if international games haven't been happening between the big nations for maybe 1, 2, 3 years because of what's going on. The international travel has been shut down. Do you think we may see countries that we wouldn't expect rise to the top in that time, and countries who may have been the first, second, third tier teams, they'll start dropping down just because there'll be a shake-up in the competition?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'll be a shake-up for two reasons. One, that that those nations aren't playing each other. I mean, we don't know how long that's going to be. I mean, that could be 6 months, or as you say, that could be it could be 6 years. We just don't know where this is all heading. But the second reason is commercial. The game's professional, and it's money talks. And these international competitions, they're businesses. So we're already seeing a big strain on competitions globally because it's not being played. There's no there's no money flowing. There's no games on TV. There's the sponsorships dropping off. So that's going to have a major impact on the game as well as not playing each other.
Yeah, I suppose there needs to be almost a reborn of sport and events in general. There's stadiums will be hurting hard because if people can't have large gatherings, they won't be able to go to the games live. They may have to watch all the games on TV, but what does live sport actually look like in the future? It's a totally different landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think you'll see it. Esports was already kind of surging. I think you're going to see esports kind of really come to the forefront. You already are. I said, Formula One and yachting is already on esports, and some of those top athletes are now competing on esports. So it's giving that a platform into more kind of mainstream. It was kind of operating majorly in a big way, but kind of in the shadows a little bit. So I think you'll see esports kind of come to the forefront, and also just a different way of doing things. I think that as I say, I think there's a lot of positives that'll come out of it. To have our best players not being picked up to play overseas, or our All Blacks to be playing more for their provinces and hopefully clubs. But at the end of the day, Jase, they're like all sports athletes. They're just rugby players, and if I'm honest, probably some of them were getting paid too much to begin with anyway.
Yeah, hopefully they can hit the field again, though. That's their passion. That's what they've dreamed of doing. It'll be, it's just we don't know what the new normal looks like anymore.
Yeah, that's right. We don't, and I think one thing's for sure, we're going to be coming out to a different world, post coronavirus. But looking like it's going to be a really positive outcome for New Zealand. We're tracking really well. So when I say positive, positive compared to a lot of other nations.
Yeah, I think a funny thing happens when you compare professional sport and I guess non-professional sport, where if you have professional sport, you have people chasing the fame and glory and money a lot more than if you don't have that money there in the background. And so if there's no money in the sport, you get people who are playing sport just for the sport itself, and it can actually breed quite a lot of passion. Like back in my hockey days, we weren't making any money. In fact, we were working to play hockey, and what that meant is we generated such a amazing community that were so passionate about the sport. No one was caring about contracts. They were working to make sure their hockey life could stay intact. And I just wonder if that shift will happen in sport in general, just because there's no money there.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I think that's a good thing. I think first and foremost, you want to play the game because you love it, whether you're playing hockey or water polo or whatever you're playing. You want to be passionate about it and play for the right reasons. There's a lot of talk about the game might fall over because there's no money in it anymore, or because this international competition will fall over. But as long as the grassroots and young people are playing and club and school sports strong, there's always going to be players coming through. The game and sport seem to function all right before professionalism, so I don't see it being an issue if there's not as much money in any of those codes.
Yeah. Shifting sideways slightly, I know you love following politics, whether it's nationally, internationally. What do you think of the global climate at the moment? Just personal thoughts.
I think it's tricky.
Yeah, real complex. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's quite scary. Yeah, I mean, where do you start? Where do you end? Look at the States, for example.
Yeah.
The leaders of the Western world. It's just absolute chaos there. The country on so many levels, and it's really sad. Because generally American people are really good people. Some of the greatest people that I've met in my life and my travels. They're a very divided country. And that I think is really, really dangerous. And you kind of see that creeping into other Western nations as well. You've either got to be right or left, and I don't agree with that. So I think that's quite scary. I mean, what's happening in Europe as well, with obviously the impact that Corona is having over there, but also prior to that, things were pretty dire. I mean, with immigration and refugees flooding into Greece and Brexit, the Western world was in a bit of trouble prior to this. So hopefully through all of this, some good comes out of it. But yeah, I'd say it's a very complex and scary situation.
Yeah. I guess like just on your point of America, they've got quite a polarizing culture over there. People like to take a side or take a stand on a lot of topics, and this whole situation seems like it's the catalyst for either for them to head into a lot of strife, which it looks like at the moment, but hopefully out of that they come up with solutions. They sit down and start to sort out the problems that have been intrinsic in their culture for a while. Maybe that will happen, maybe not. Maybe that's too optimistic. But they've got an election coming up, and who knows what will come of the election. I think it will be quite an aggressive election just because of what's been going on. There'll be words thrown about the place. People will take sides, and who's to say what will come out of it?
Yeah, hopefully. I don't think we'll see too much change from this coming election, but what is really heartening is your generation and below. I think you're bringing a lot of fresh ideas and different ways of doing things. I think that kind of the system that we've kind of built Western civilization on is a little bit broken, and you can't say that it's not. I mean, just look around us, and I mean that before coronavirus. So, but as I say, I think that there's a lot of hope there with younger generations coming through. I think younger generations seem to be more connected, be more open-minded, and there seems to be quite a bit of empathy there, which is a really, really important trait.
Yeah, regardless of, I suppose, what the future looks like, we're really lucky to be here in New Zealand. It's like we can see what's going on across the rest of the world. There's, as you say, Europe's in a whole lot of hurt at the moment because of how many cases they've had, and places like Italy, Spain, the UK, America has its own problems going on. But in New Zealand, everyone seems to be banding together. We're in the corner of the world. We've gone into quite heavy lockdown, which means that we've managed to flatten the curve dramatically. So we hopefully New Zealand can help the rest of the world in some regard once we come out of this, because our long-term effects may not be as heavy as the rest of the world.
Yeah, that never a truer word spoken, mate. We're in the best country in the world, and that's where I guess I draw my positivity from. We're really lucky to be here. It's paradise, and we should all be really grateful to be Kiwis and live in this fantastic country full of fantastic people. And I think you're right that hopefully we can show the world a better way.
Awesome. Before we sign off, have you got any last thoughts to tell all the millions of viewers that this podcast will go out to?
Oh yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of people hurting out there, and this whole situation has affected everyone in one way or another. I think it's really important that we try and move forward positively and address the things that have happened, but try and look for opportunities, because, as I said at the start, what's happening is affected not only global games in a major way, but also our pie business. But I've tried to park that and find opportunities through it all, and I hope that others can as well. I think it's really important that we look at the time we've had to self-reflect and spend with family. For me, myself, it's the first time I've been forced to stop and take a break in over a decade. So that time with my family has been really, really, really precious. Get out there and once this is all over, connect with your friends and family and others in your community, and be thankful that we're here in Aotearoa.
Yeah, never a true word said. Tyrone Campbell, thank you so much for jumping on. The mantra of Global Games is dream it, live it, and you certainly do that in a big way. So thanks for the adventures for the past 4 years. I'm sure there's many more to come. And thanks for jumping on the Daily Jase live show.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure, mate. And look, I've seen some of the caliber of people you've had on the show. It's been really impressive, and I admire what you do. Really put yourself out there, not just with the Daily Jase, but everything you do in life, and you're a real inspiration, and just keep up the good work, bro.
Cheers,
awesome.
Mate. Likewise. All right, we'll catch you soon. Thanks, everyone. Peace out.